I hope you are doing well. God bless you. God bless you. Hope that you are doing well. Hope things are going well for you. And I want to really tell you, you came here to be God. You came here to be godlike. And I think about it as I've been thinking about this and thinking about just discussion and things I really wanted to share as we have this discussion, talking a lot about, the Edo people and talking a lot about ancient Kemet and ancient Kushan. As I think about this, the whole concept of God, the whole concept of being able to see God in yourself and you in God, right? And we talk about that a lot from the standpoint of, having a deity or a divinity that doesn't look like us or not knowing your history and how significant that is. It really makes me think about how do we take this whole thing home? How do we start to really drill down? Because if you think about the most important person in the universe, right? The most important person to you, the idea you have of the supreme being, and looking at that idea and looking at that and thinking that you don't see any of yourself in that you don't see God in you or yourself reflected in God. It's an amazing and kind of a crazy way to go through life, not even seeing yourself as divine. As I think about that, as we get down to what our ancestors were really doing, as we start to think about the whole concept of the manifestation of God. And we'll talk a little bit about, Osanobua. If you and you've had the correct pronunciation, let me know. That's the Edo concept of the supreme being, the creator of the universe. You will kind of mention up there. If we talk a little bit about that whole concept of then being able to see God and representations of God and seeing God as yourself and being able to see yourself in it. And that becomes a very powerful thing. But it also makes me think, like, what are you doing? What are you here for if it's not to make a difference, right? When you think about that, you start to think about what my goals are, what things I want to accomplish in life, and how we are in a situation where a lot of us were lost. I mean, I see a lot of children all the time, every day, who are in situations where they don't have a goal. They don't have an idea of what they want to become. They begin to put things that are not godlike as their manifestations of who they want to be, whether it's material things or silly things, or they might be looking at somebody doing drugs or somebody doing alcohol, somebody acting up in school, or somebody who's just wearing a certain pair of tennis shoes, or somebody's doing something material, and put those as things that maybe they should be. When you sit down and think about it, though, the whole idea of who you are, the whole idea of what you want to become, when you start to realize that and think about that, just being here, being on earth, doing something with your life, finding your purpose. And I know a lot of you think that way, and you can share with me what your thoughts are. The whole idea of finding your purpose, like, what are you here for, right? And when you start to get the understanding of that whole concept of being God-like, of being made in the image of God, of being able to express yourself, of being all that you can be, why would you be here and do anything else? Why would you be here and be anything else other than everything you can be? And that's God-like. And when you start to think about that, you don't spend your time, you don't waste your time on things that don't help you manifest that. I mean, it's almost like, I always think of this like it's a garden. Imagine a big, beautiful, wonderful garden that can grow anything you need it to grow. Anything you need that will go in your kitchen, anything you need that will be medicinal. It can grow anything you need in your life, but all you have to do is pay attention to it. All you have to do is nurture it, and to give it the water and the time and the sunlight and the nutrients that it needs to grow. And when you think about that, that's what God is in you. And if you waste your time on things that don't allow it to grow, you can't be surprised if you don't grow. And I'm thinking about that, for myself and for just in general, you can't be surprised if it doesn't grow if you don't spend time on it. And I really like that idea of thinking about how much time do you spend nurturing the God in you? Because that's really what our ancestors were doing. When you think about the amazing things they did, whether you're talking about building pyramids, or you're talking about manifesting, understanding mathematics and coming up with scientific ideas, and understanding how the moon and the cycle of the stars work, and understanding, how to apply medicinal things to your body, and understanding things internally. When you think about that, you're talking about people who really went to another level internally to bring about things that are magnificent. You're talking about people who didn't live their lives through nothing, because if they didn't do what they did, if they didn't study the science that they did, if they didn't study the math that they did and the medicinal things they did, if they didn't give up, right? If they didn't be in a situation where they were giving up, or they stopped adapting, we wouldn't be here. I mean, there's so many times probably that the human race and human beings have been on teetering on the brink of extinction, or are we going to make it or not going to make it. There's always those things that are, who makes the choice to bring up the magnificent idea? Who makes the choice to face the difficult decisions? And those are the people who are God-like. Those are the people who are setting up in their soul, establishing that I'm not going to let this challenge meet me and I don't rise to it. And it's going to be a challenge. It's always a significant thing. But I think about that because at the end of the day, when you face that challenge, whether it's on a human scale, and I think about even today, there are a lot of things that we're facing. I mean, everything from climate change to understanding our history to our children not even being educated, right? There's some studies that were done saying that the majority of adults in America, you can't read on a sixth grade level. They read below a sixth grade level. You could even look up the data. There are a large amount of people who are like in the teenage age going all the way up to adulthood through adulthood who can't read on a sixth grade level. They really are below a sixth grade level. How is that even possible? How does that even set us up for the standpoint to be competitive in the world or to be able to take care of our needs? So whether it's issues like education and our children not learning or not even wanting to learn, or a health crisis that people face because we may not be taking care of ourselves and don't even know how to take care of ourselves, or climate change, or all kinds of people getting deported, immigration, being able to eat, right? Economic. There are a lot of people who don't have enough money to live. They're basically living paycheck to paycheck. We're out there trying to struggle, trying to make ends meet, and can barely make ends meet. And if a challenge comes up, they're one paycheck, one emergency away from not being able to take care of themselves, their homes, or take care of themselves, right? These are challenges that face the world. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to be godlike to overcome them. We're not going to watch enough TV. We're not going to watch our TV our way out of this. We're not going to social media our way out of this. We're not going to even probably think our way out of it. We're going to have to really become godlike, imagine our way out, go inside ourselves the same way our ancestors did, the same things that they had to face, similar types of things, similar catastrophes, and find your way out of this situation. So as I think about this, where does all this history come from? Where does it come to a head? What's the point of all this? All of it's able to address the challenges that you meet, to be able to fix the things that you're dealing with, to be able to understand who you are and whose you are as you kind of deal with that. And I'll kind of look at, thank you for joining. I very much appreciate it. God bless you for those who are there and who comment. But the whole idea is being able to face those challenges, whether it's education or healthcare or discrimination, even it's all these crazy things that we are facing. How do I overcome that? And the people that we see in our history, the people that we see that are doing magnificent things, they are people who tapped into that godlike nature themselves. And we got to deal with it, because a lot of times we'll push away from that. We'll be in situations where we think we can overcome this without becoming godlike, or we don't need to pray. We don't need to do the things that our ancestors did in order to address the things that we are facing in this day and age, when they were facing just as difficult situations as we are facing. We're just facing it differently. And I don't think that we're here to be in a situation. We're not put here to be in a situation where we are supposed to be less than what we are. We're not put here in a situation where we're supposed to just watch TV our way out of it, if you will. So to watch TV to so much that'll help us figure us how to get out of this. We are really here to be able to develop ourselves, to advance the human race, to build something, right? I was looking at someone talk about the idea of a child, and from an African perspective, to one of the African traditions, talking about, children come here to build. Like when a child comes, if they unfortunately have a short period of time in life, they were a child who was essentially not going to build. They were a child who was not supposed to be here for a long period of time. That was that particular person's perspective. But then when a child comes, you want them to kind of be committed to life, and you want them to be able to build something and to contribute. And I think about that. Imagine thinking about your life, that part of what you do in your life is to contribute. Part of what you do in your life is become godlike, to be able to actually manifest that and spend enough time in your life focusing on it to do it. And so when I think about our ancestors being able to conceptualize God, right? Because when you look at African civilizations, you're talking about conceptualization of God. You look at that, whether you're talking about Kushite or Kemetic people or Western African tradition, Southern African, Northern, whatever. You're looking for people who conceptualize God and see God in themselves. And that whole concept of being able to conceptualize God and to understand you were made in a divine image, you were made to do divine things, is remarkable. And so you have challenges that come to you, and you're going to face difficult challenges, and you can't give up. And that to me is why Auset is such a significant figure in Kemetic history, because she's the person who wouldn't give up. She's the person who was seeking to restore divinity to the throne, to restore divinity in your life, and would not give up until it happened. And so for me, I think that's the fundamental reason for being here. God bless you. Hope that you are doing well. That God and goddesses, right? When you think about that, and the other deal with that, people looking at the whole idea of whether or not they are just the whole idea of whether or not they are, male or female. I think about that as well. People look at it from the standpoint of of not really understanding or not really thinking about the balance that exists, not really thinking about, you really shouldn't have somebody between you and God. You really shouldn't have somebody who's in a situation where they are standing between. I don't care if it's a priest. I don't care if it's your mother, your father, your husband, your wife. We have a lot of situations where we have these constructs put up where we're told that someone else, whether they are a Buddha or the Dalai Lama, the Pope, whoever it may be, whoever that person is, that person, a priest or whoever you're going to church, that person is closer to God than you are. That person somehow, you have to go through that person to get to God, or whatever that might be in your mind. I think that's something that we really have to just push away from, because God didn't need any of those people to create you. God didn't need any of those people to bring you forth. Of course, you come through your parents, but your parents didn't even know all the scientific DNA stuff to create you. That was something that was happening outside. God did that. And so when you think about that, that's who you owe your allegiance to. That's who you owe your commitment to, and your willingness to be God-like. And obviously you commit to your family and you do things for your family unit, because that's significant and why you're here. But you commit your life to God and you begin to say, that's why I owe my allegiance to. That's what I should be trying to be like. I should be trying to be like something, and some things that are beyond what I know I can be, that are beyond what people say I can be. And when we think about the things our ancestors did, they did remarkable things that are lasting. I was reading about some of the things that were found in South Africa that are 100,000 years old, 75,000 years old. Rock drawings that might be 27,000 years old, or mathematical artifacts, or obviously the pyramids. Many things that are done in stone that are done remarkable. Many things, people did many things that nobody thought they could do, that have gone down in history for you and I to know that your ancestors did beyond what other people thought they can do. So I just wanted to share that message. I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are and see some of the comments in the comment section. I told them that's why they treat us like that. They know who we are. That's an important point. And I'm curious as to what you may think, Beverly. They know who we are. What do we know, right? And I think that's a significant point, because I think about that, because a lot of times people will talk about, hey, they're afraid of us, right? Because they know who we are. And I think about that. It almost doesn't even matter what they know, as you probably know. Is what do we know? Do we know who we are? So if you're thinking about that, if you step out on a basketball court and you're the best basketball player there is, you're not really so much thinking about whether or not the other people, the other players know who you are. The question is, do you? Because when you step out there, you can make the statement beyond anybody. And that really gets to the heart of it. I love that you brought up that question and that issue. Do we know who we are? And if you don't know who you are, I tell people all the time, because I'll talk to people and sometimes people will ask for advice, or they're just reaching out and just want to talk. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know what your purpose is in life, if you're not feeling peace, stop everything you're doing and don't do anything else until you find it. Get yourself, how the whole gospel spiritual say, I cried on the Lord, I called on the Lord all night long, and I would not rest until he blessed my soul. I'm a witness that he can move. The stories and the idea about the grandmother going in the closet and praying until she got an answer from God. If this is a situation where you don't know who you are, stop everything. Literally, if I don't know who I am, I don't have time to watch TV. I don't have time to play on social media. I don't have time to waste my day, because the most important idea that I should have in my life, I don't have a clear concept of. I should know who I am and what I'm supposed to do and what my purpose is. That's why you get up in the morning, right? And that idea you were mentioning, Beverly, to teach your children about that gods and goddesses is significant, because if we can't give them a sense of divineness inside themselves, what are we doing, right? When you think about our ancestors, that's what they were doing, man. They were instilling in their children the concept of who you are and what you can become and what you can accomplish and what things may look at. That whole idea of Ma'at and the ancestors, the whole idea you understood you come from greatness. The idea was to bring that child up so that child would be a contributing member of society, and that child would be able to take and move the flag forward, so to speak. And if we're not instilling in our children that they're godlike, who they are, what are we doing? As a parent, as an aunt, as an uncle, as a leader, even if you're a cousin, an older cousin, whatever role you might play in a child's life, if you're not instilling in them their ability to move forward and who they are, like, what's the point? What is the point? And we talk a lot about, and I see this, and I'm just curious to hear what people may think. We talk a lot about, God bless you, Well, yes, it's so true. Thank you. God bless you. We talk a lot about material things. We talk a lot about, we measure success in terms of money, and it doesn't mean you can't have money. I mean, this is not. People say silly things. Oh, you're saying you can't have money. Nobody's saying that you can't have resources. It's just resources, resources to live, and resources to help people. Really, the resources you have should help people as well. But we talk a lot about, teaching our children sometimes to invest. We don't know enough about investments. We don't know enough about stocks. We don't know, and all these things. But are we teaching them morality? Doesn't matter if you have a lot of stocks and you're not more and you lose them anyway, right? And you fumble with it anyway. Doesn't matter if you braille a whole empire and you throw it away because you don't have discipline and you're treating people inappropriately and now they're coming to get you. I mean, what does it matter if you don't teach them morality? What does it matter if you don't teach them quality? Because you don't have to have a certain amount of money to be successful. Your bank account doesn't have to be a certain way in order for you to be successful or in order for you to make an impact in life. Sometimes you might be in a situation like Harriet Tubman or even Martin Luther King, because he didn't have a lot of money, where you have to make an impact and you didn't have a choice in the matter. Harriet Tubman didn't have a choice. I mean, that's where she was born, right? But she made a difference with her life. Sojourner Truth was never a millionaire, but she made a difference. Sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you're challenged. That doesn't mean you're less. As a matter of fact, the people who are millionaires look to you. They're looking to the Sojourner Truths and the Frederick Douglasses and the Martin Luther Kings and the Harriet Tubmans and the Ausars and people like that to mimic themselves after. Be the kind of person that other people want to mimic. Be that kind of person other people should mimic, right? Be that kind of person, because at the end of the day, if you are moving through this life, kind of navigating the ship, and you don't know where you're going, none of it kind of matters, right? You literally have to understand that you are going to make challenges. You got to be godlike, and there's nothing else that we could focus our time on. We should focus our time on if we're not accomplishing that, because those are the types of problems we have. Those are the types of challenges you're going to face. You're going to have to become God to overcome them. So I wanted to share that. I appreciate. So money is a tool, and not something to die for. Now, that's a very important point. Somebody's mentioning money is a tool. And he has to say it's from the DNA, right? And I had somebody say, had someone talk about the whole concept of DNA and, what's passed down through the mothers and how we can pass the lineages back so far that you literally have programmed in you everything that your ancestors learned, everything that human beings have become for the millions of years we've had ancestors here. That whole idea to be able to tap into that whole idea, I was kind of thinking about that too, because a lot of times we look at the world in terms of just matter. Like the matter as being like stuff, like you think like a pen or pencil, things that we want to accomplish. And we don't really take into account the energy that's around us. I mean, something as simple as light, right? Light is energy. You have light energy. You may have sound energy. You have things that you have dark energy. You have all kinds of things that are present in the universe that we don't necessarily feel as material. We can't necessarily touch or that type of thing. We don't necessarily assess them with our senses, but they're present. And at the end of the day, a lot of times, those types of things, those energies, those types of things that are significant in our lives are very important. And it's not just the physical. We really have to take some time with ourselves. We really have to take our time praying. And sometimes we have to teach ourselves how to pray. And I'd love maybe to do a whole segment on how do you pray? How do you get in contact? It's easy to say do it, right? But how do you do it, right? How is that even going? And I'd love to hear your comments, because you guys may have better thoughts than I do. How do you get in touch with this? I mean, Beverly was mentioning how telling her children about gods and goddesses and telling this in the DNA. How do you get them to actually come in contact? How do you do it yourself? Because like I said, it's easy to say it, but it's another thing to do it. Nothingness is in our home. Okay. Light is all. Okay. Thank you so much. God bless you. Definitely, please. It's beautiful to hear. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. So I appreciate that. The idea for me, one of the most important, I'd love to hear your thoughts, is to simply just want it. Right. You may ask yourself, how do I learn to read, or how do I learn to play basketball? Pick up a ball and start dribbling. That's the first step. If you want to learn how to pray, how do I get in touch with God inside me? I think God is that good. God is that great that God can reach out to you and touch you and change the things around you. Because that's why our ancestors were practicing God. They were practicing these things because they work, because they're true. They found them to be true. We just have lost the practice of it. And the idea is, I think God is great enough that the things around you can change to help you figure out how to do it. A lot of people are stuck on, you have to walk this way, you have to talk this way, you have to do a ceremony this way, and they're stuck on the ceremony of it, right? And when you start to get stuck on the ceremony, you also get stuck on the hierarchy. That person must be closer than I am, or I must, be not as close to God. You have all these. I don't think you have to stick. You have to do. I think the most important thing you have to do if you want to become godlike, if you want to get closer to God, if you want to be successful in life, is to want it. That is the most important thing. If you found a child that doesn't want it, it's going to be hard to give it to them, right? You have to develop the desire, the want in them, the drive in them to do it. So if you want to learn how to play, just start praying. Just start talking to God like God is your parent. Just start talking to God. Decide to want it, and you will find the things that you need will come up. How to pray, how to meditate. You will find that a lot of things you start to do become more fulfilling to you than other things you might have been doing earlier in your life, right? And you start to say, wait a minute, this feels good. This is right. I'm reading. I'm studying, I'm praying, I'm doing something, I'm building a business, or I'm doing whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. And this is way more fulfilling to me. One of the most important things you have to do significant is to one, and that's where the energy comes in. That's what our ancestors were nurturing. I think African people are masters at nurturing and cultivating energy, being able to tap into it, being able to utilize it, being able to be masters of it, being able to manifest it in yourself and use it to your advantage. When you start to understand that a lot of these things are just waves, a lot of these things are how you begin, how you feel, how you motivate yourself, the things that kind of carry it, they're just waves and they're just energy. How do I begin to nurture positive energy in myself? How do I begin to nurture effective energy? How do I get myself closer to God? And the very first thing you have to do is want it, and then step out and try. And I believe that the things that you need will come to you, right? And one of the other key important things is time. Like nothing grows automatically. Everything takes time. Everything is subject to time except God, right? Everything is subject, no matter who you are, how big you are, time is going to catch you. Everybody is subject to, everybody's going to be, buying, if you will, to time. If you put time in addition to your desire, your want to do it, you're gonna find it manifesting. Just take enough time to spend time with yourself, to spend time with yourself in quiet areas, to spend time with yourself praying, not with the TV, not with the social media, just you and God. Take the time with it. And if you can do that long enough, you'll start to see things open up. You'll start to see yourself view things in different ways. You won't begin to look at the world in the same exact way. You won't have other people's minds and other people's opinion feeding into what you should do and giving you doubt, right? Sometimes we have doubt because we're hearing other people's voices, other people's opinions that's telling us we can't do this or we shouldn't do this. You're not spending enough time with yourself. You're not spending enough time with your own thoughts and come into contact with God. That's my opinion on that. And I love to hear what you're saying. I think it comes from home. I had to learn that Bible. Yep, there you go. Okay. I love myself first, right? Loving yourself first is significant. And people will get mad at one way of approaching God, another. I read the Bible when I was younger, and I was growing up in church, and I grew up in like a holiness church, which is very much like Pentecostal, if you will. The energy, we're talking about energy that I felt it talking to the mothers and the elders of the churches, having them be able to, and I could tell, I knew this was something deeper than just kind of some cursory idea. The prayers that were being done, the shouting that was taking place, the energy, those are real significant things. And the whole idea of taking time, even as a young person, back in junior high school in the 7th grade, taking time and come home and reading the Bible, taking time to ask God, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? What does my life mean? Now, what did you mean by this? That was remarkable. And I didn't get, shunned away. God did not teach me because I was reading the Bible, and some people get mad at that didn't happen. Just taking the time myself to commit to it was a significant thing. And I know people will get, mad. They say you have to do it this, that's just ridiculous. You have to commit. And I know that the lessons I was learning, even as a child, even in 7th grade, right? And you can do it as young. You can do it when you're young. You just got to want to do it. Even in 7th grade, those are significant lessons to me. And one of the major things I did was I took the time. I mean, I literally took the time. I would come home, do my work, homework, whatever, and I would spend sometimes 2 or 3 hours praying and reading. And that may seem like it doesn't matter what it seems like. That was very growth. One of the things that helped me in school a great deal because I learned how to analyze things. I was reading so much and kind of looking at it and praying on it and interpreting the Bible for myself that it helped me when I got to school and I had to read something, in literature class or something like that and interpret. I had already a great deal of practice. I was able to do that. And so that whole idea of committing yourself and taking time and knowing yourself. Sudanese need ransack when they reopen it. Okay, we look at that. That they okay. Will they reopen it? That's a very good question about the Sudanese Museum. We can when will they that? That's a question we can ask about that. But that whole idea, and that's a good point. I mean, you're making a good point talking about our artifacts. I mean, I look at that and I love the pyramids. I mean, I love the many things that our Kemetic people what they left for us that last thousands of years, but nothing on earth may last forever. Even the wonderful things they did may at some point in time, a million years from now, be rubble. Who knows? How do we take it when our ancestors did their job? They did their job to give us the messages and the light to carry us forward to last thousands of years, it's time for us to pick it up and move it forward. Maybe we need to build on the resources they built, or build new monuments, or understand that we need to build it inside of ourselves. But that whole idea, you can't know yourself if you don't take the time. Just like you can't get to know anybody else unless you take the time. You can't know yourself unless you take the time. And I really believe one of the things you pay yourself with is with time. Pay yourself with enough time to develop the things in you that you need to develop. So I want to thank you very much. I just wanted to share this. I love to keep hearing what your thoughts down below, and the ideas that we can share and help people get closer to God and get closer in this way. I thank you so much. I hope you join me soon, and I'll talk to you again soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.